Hello, everybody. One second. Let me check and make sure we're getting all of our audio in. Ooh. Someone I know is live. Oh. All right. Test, test. Hey, it works. Cool. All right. Hey, everybody. Sorry it's been like a month, but it's been like a month. First off, I wanted to remind everyone that all the free asset packs, because every month Unreal does the thing where they have free asset packs for Unreal, has actually moved off of. Sorry, I just noticed on my thing that my amount of my screen that I'm showing is wrong. Can I undo that? Because I need to have my picture a little bit bigger to make sure I'm covering any notifications that pop up. Anyway, sorry. I'm a bad streamer. But anyway, so they moved. They used to have the thing in your Epic launcher. You would go here. It would be the marketplace, and it would have like several free packs every month. So they switched the marketplace back in October from being marketplace to Fab. I don't know why. It doesn't seem logical, and Fab doesn't really seem to have any super cool upgrades that make it any better than than Marketplace was. So, okay. But this is where it is. I guess it's probably because they wanted to add like the Unreal stuff and all that kind of thing. But whatever. They had some free ones, but they're really hard to find now. So now, there's this little tile here. You hit explore, it takes you to a new page. It's these 3 packs today. I will also add the level of be very cautious when getting the free packs now. I checked all 3 of these and they all seemed kind of okay, but Fab has already just been flooded with AI generated stuff. I outside of the legal issues, right, where it is not possible to copyright AI created stuff now, right? There has to be a human in the process. So anything you create with AI is effectively public, right? Like anyone else can steal it and use it. But there is also that kind of thing of it's not going to be good, right? So like it's already really challenging to find like well-made assets that you can use in your game, even without having all of that AI cruft in there too. And now we have all the AI cruft, so yay! It just makes me hope that I can hire an artist soon. So, so a couple of things. I went to MDev. I spoke at MDev. That was really fun, really interesting. I got to hang out with a bunch of cool developers. If you're anywhere near Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm talking within like 4 hours, right? You should actually set a reminder for next year for MDev. It's a really cool, really small conference, right? Like if you can imagine, GDC is probably like, it could potentially be like 10,000 people, right? Like GDC is huge. There's so many people. There's so many lectures. There's, just like miles of exposition space and everything. But MDev is kind of like, it's like the super small kind of local GDC, right? And so it was really cool because for the price you would pay to get in, you were getting like just so much more as far as the lecture quality and like, the people you could run into and talk to, and just how small it was made it really easy to like take time and talk to people and like get to know them and like really make those kind of network connections. Also, they did this super cool thing where they like, I don't know how much they charged or whatever, but indies, there were a bunch of little indies that were there like tabling their game. And so yeah, it's a table, they've got the one laptop or they've got the one TV and the console set up with it and everything, but it was really cool. We got to check out a lot of really like weird and interesting indie games, and it was really neat. It was actually a really good event, and I hope I get to go next year. It was fun, and I was really glad I got to go, even though it was kind of a train wreck of a trip. um, Madison, Wisconsin is not designed to work for people who don't have cars, and we didn't rent a car, so that was our big mistake. But yeah, it was really fun, and we got to talk to a lot of people about Ghost Hunter Simulator, and that was really cool too. So one of the things about making games, making anything creative really, is that you can work on it for a long time and then take and show it to people, and people aren't interested, or they'll immediately point out like things that are wrong with it or problems or whatever, right? So you kind of have to be ready, like prepared for negative feedback or negative reactions whenever you're going and showing people something for really the first time. I think a monkey made its way onto my desk. But even with like all of like being prepared for people to be like not interested in Ghost Hunter Simulator, we didn't have that. Like, people wanted to talk to us about it. They wanted to know about it. They were interested in the game. As we would talk about it, they would get more interested. And one of the things we did, and you can kind of see it right here, is that symbol there with the two little cute ghosts and their little headphones, and their little EMF meters. We were going to this event. I wanted to wear a shirt, right, that said Ghost Hunter Simulator on it. So we had those shirts made, and that's the symbol that was on the shirt. And it was really cool seeing people like make the connection of, well, it's Ghost Hunter Simulator. They understand the concept already. They see the two little cute ghosts, and their immediate reaction is, oh, this isn't a scary game. And it was like perfect, right? Like it was really nice having that validation of this is the perfect setup and the perfect way to kind of introduce people to our game. So that was really cool. We had a lot of fun. I did my lecture. It was actually really funny because I kind of on the fly changed the lecture. So for those of you who haven't watched the other streams or anything, my lecture was pretty much on how to build a really quick prototype level for demos or prototypes or whatever in Unreal, and how to get pretty close, right? Because one of the challenges in level design as a level designer is you're building out this space, but it's not just a space, right? It's not just for the player to look at. They actually have to play in it, right? And so it has to support the gameplay. So the idea is always that gameplay and the level should always just be working together, right? And so if it's not quite perfectly balanced or lined up or set up or whatever, like the gameplay can feel wrong and the level can feel wrong. So the way to get around that is to try and like nail it on your first shot, which is really hard to do, right? You're sticking the landing of something that you probably haven't done that often. And so I kind of, a lot of the things I've talked about in the stream and talked about, being important for making sure your level is at least close, at least in the right area, was what I talked about. But I couldn't figure out why they put me, because they put me on this stage that was far too big for me. It was like the main stage, and I couldn't figure out why, like they had put me on there so I was sitting there in the audience waiting for my turn, and the group that went before me was a group of panelists, and they were talking about how to pitch right? How to pitch your game to publishers or investors or whatever to get money to be able to make your game. And they were all the money people, right? They were all the people in charge, the people who are deciding which pitches get money and which pitches don't, and that kind of thing. And I'm sitting here listening to this and going, oh, they want me to talk, because in that panel, they must have said it like 10 times of, don't pitch to us if you don't have a demo. Don't pitch to us if you don't have something to show, right? You need a prototype. You need a demo. You need to show that the idea is solid and give us something to look at and see. And they're not wrong. They always say a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Well, a demo is worth 100 presentation slides, 1,000 presentation slides, right? And so it was kind of one of those things of like, going through that panel and listening to them talk. So when I got up to talk, I was like, okay, well, I had all this stuff where I was kind of talking about how it works, versus AAA versus indie, how you're, thinking about level design as you're going through and everything. And I kind of got up there and just kind of mentally was like, nope, I'm going to talk about how to build a prototype level for a pitch. so really I kind of like trimmed off a bunch of the stuff I was going to talk about, which was good because I ended up barely fitting in the time limit. You guys have listened. I can talk a lot. So I'm actually going to do that presentation. I'm going to record it later, not today. But I'm going to record it and I'm going to put it on YouTube. You will notice, so Ember Dion is my online name. You'll notice that's my Twitch name. It's also my YouTube name. And if you look at my YouTube, you will notice that I've been uploading the uncut streams, right? These are just the big raw files, big and chunky, not at all edited, with the hope that I will eventually have time to learn how to edit videos and cut them down and actually make them, kind of consumable, because right now they're just too big and unwieldy. But kind of incidentally, though, in November there were a couple of times I had people who asked me questions. They wanted to build a level. They wanted to start working on a hobby project, or they needed to work on a test for a job, that kind of thing. And so they would ask me questions about Unreal, and I kind of was having those moments of like, ooh, how do you not know this? Or how did you not find this? So I wanted to actually today, we're actually going to start a new level. I'm just going to spin up a new level and walk through Unreal kind of as a introduction to, okay, you don't know what you're doing, here you go, here's the first start. I did also want to call out, I did also get a new tattoo. This is my shiny new one that I just got. It's got 3 dragons and all of the Dungeons and Dragons dice, including 2 of the D10. A lot of people only do 1 of the D10, and it bothers me. And then my Taylor Swift lyric, which says, "I've had the time of my life fighting dragons with you." I love D&D, and I've been playing it since I was 6, and I've always wanted a dice tattoo. And then I got the idea for this. So yeah, it's really cool. Also, Taylor Swift. Alright, so we're going to pop into Ghost Hunter Simulator. So, we've downloaded a lot of asset packs, so we have a lot of extra stuff. If you've just downloaded Unreal, right? So let's say you've done nothing else, you've just downloaded Unreal, you have no asset packs. You'll be using the starter prototyping stuff, so you won't have as many static meshes as I have whenever I search for them. But you can get those from, those monthly free asset packs, and, there every so often there's like humble bundles that have them in it. Most of our asset packs are Dakogon, which is an actual company. It's a group. They do environment packs for video games. We tend to use those because they are actually very good for video games. They're pretty reasonable poly counts. They have their nanite stuff set up properly. They're the correct scale with just the base Unreal player. Um, so that's why we use those. I'm actually a little bummed. I found out that Fab got rid of ratings, so you can't rate packs anymore. So I will just have to remind people that Daikugan is great packs. You should get them. Okay, so yeah, so this is our Ghost Hunter game. So what I'm gonna do, we're just gonna go into a level. Now we have a template level. This is probably that's like a step further than most people if you've just downloaded the basic version of Unreal. But what I want to do is I want to create a new folder, and let's see what level am I creating here. It's a haunted place. Let's do a theater, right? Theaters are always haunted. Lots of spooky stuff. Okay, so we're going to do a theater. So now the way I would normally do it is I would literally come in here because I already have my template level. I can just copy this, create a copy, and copy it into the thing. So the way you would do that is you would literally say duplicate, and it generates a duplicate. We're going to rename it, and we're going to name it theater. Actually, let's just rename it theater. Let me double check. Yeah, okay, so we're not actually putting fancy names on things. We're just calling it theater. Okay. And then we do this, and we say move. And it's going to move it. So obviously if you just downloaded a brand spanking new version of Unreal and you were doing things, you would right click. So there's a nice little right click menu here. And that's how I made the folder. But then there's also the level here, and you can just make a brand spanking new level. The only reason why you wouldn't want to do that is if you have a template or something like that, right? Something that you can copy off of just to shortcut parts of the process. So one of the things about making video games is you almost never want to start from scratch on anything. So template levels are really useful for companies. So they kind of tend to pack in a bunch of the things that have to be in every level into a template. But also you're going to want lights and stuff like that. I do want to add an asterisk here. Ghost Hunter Simulator is using kind of an old, no, it's not really old. It's like 2 years old. 5 years old. A couple of years ago, the process of making levels was you would have a level and then you had sub-levels. And what that does is, your level is like a container that holds all your sub-levels. All your sub-levels are automatically loaded, so they're all just kind of apart. But they're separate files, so whenever you check something out of Perforce, you can all work in separate little sub-level files, and that way a bunch of people can work on the level at once, right? So when you think about people, everybody's trying to touch a thing, you have to save it. Perforce allows you to save and move files around and stuff between the different employees, but you still need to be able to save things separately, and you can't merge level files. That just doesn't work. That's not a thing that happens. So because you can't merge level files, use sublevels. Well, I like working with sublevels. That's my preferred way to do it because it allows me to organize things. But most game companies are shifting away from using sublevels. They're instead using world instances, which then have data layers. And it does all this stuff. It's kind of weird. It's a little more black boxy. It's a little harder to understand if you don't understand all the tech behind Unreal. But what it allows you to do is you can have each item in the level as a separate thing that's saved in Perforce. So That way a bunch of people can be working on a level at once. You don't need a whole bunch of sub-levels. It's all just, everything is its own save, which is kind of interesting and weird, and kind of hard to like mentally get used to after you've been working in sub-levels and stuff. But I like sub-levels, so we use sub-levels. One of the great things about being the person who's paying for the game is you kind of get to pick what you want to do. So you'll notice almost immediately there's a bunch of little stuff in here. So we just opened up the template file. We copied the template file and we just opened it up. So there's a bunch of stuff in here. And where that is all coming from is if you look over here on the bottom side of the screen here, you'll see I have a levels tab open. If you're ever looking at my stream and you're like, holy crap, where is that tab? Like, wait, it's not on my version, because I've already messed with Unreal a lot and added windows and moved things around and stuff. But if you're ever like, you know, where is that tab coming from? I don't have it on my version of Unreal. The thing you're looking for is up here, the Windows drop down. So it's going to have like the cinematic stuff, which I'll almost never use because I don't do cinematics. And then content browser. So you'll see it's got the check beside content browser 1, and that's because I have the content browser moved off onto the other screen. You know, details pane. I always have a details pane because anytime you select an item, that's where all of your information is going to be, is in that details pane. I don't know what that is. Outliner is this thing over here, which is literally just a list of everything that's in this level. It shows all the stuff that's been included, and it'll also have this super cool, it'll tell you which level it's in. If you ever want to change what's being shown in your outliner, you can right-click on this top bar up here and change which things show up. I'm going to be honest. These are kind of the only ones that really matter. Viewports is this thing in the center that has all of the stuff in it. So those are viewports. And there's a lot of stuff that kind of goes with the viewport. We'll talk about it in a minute. So world partition. That's when you use data layers. That's the new hotness. And we're not doing world partition. World partition is really useful though if you're doing like a big open world kind of thing, right? World partition is really useful for super large levels. Ghost Hunter Simulator, all of our levels are probably going to be, you know, some form of interior. And so that kind of that idea that we're not going to have to worry about that too much. So I always have my levels tab open. I put it down there with details and world settings because that's about how often I use it. So I just keep it down there. Place actors is this thing over on this side. This is all the basic things you can do. So like, these are actually a bunch of terrible ones, but like point light, right? If you need a light, you can literally click and drag it into the level and it adds it in. And now you'll have a light. Player start, you click and drag it in. Now you have player start. Trigger boxes and trigger spheres triggers are pretty much like invisible things that are just checking for whatever you happen to tell it to look for. So if this is a trigger, we look at our details pane over here, we can look at what it is. We can change how big it is. That's the box extent. And then you can come down here and say, well, okay, it's a trigger. What are we looking for that's triggering against it? That kind of thing. It is usually visible and it is also usually hidden in game, so you can't see it. But if you ever want to play your game but know where the trigger volume is, you can just uncheck that and it will show up even when you're playing in the game. You'll actually see the little lines of where the trigger is, so you can make sure, oh yeah, I am walking into this trigger and it's not working, so I need to keep looking at the bug. Okay, but one of the things I was going to point out is you'll notice we have a blockout, we have a lighting, we have placed assets, sublevels. So what I like to do with sublevels is I use them for organization. They're pretty much folders. So block out is all of that rough gray box stuff that we do. We just kind of build the level out, but it's not super pretty. And then lighting, I like to put all of it in its own level because it just makes it easier to deal with, but also it makes it easier to if you need to write. Sorry, hang on. I'm trying to think of how to explain this in a simpler way. In Unreal, if you have blueprints, which are like scripts that run and they need to see other things, they work better if all the stuff they need to see is all in the same level. Which is why world partition is the new hotness, right? Because then everything is in the same level, right? Like you don't have to worry about stuff not being able to see each other. Whereas in this method, it works better if it's all in the same thing. So by having all of our lighting together, it makes it really easy for us to write blueprints that mess with the lights. But you'll notice, these are all the template versions of the level. So there's the three things. We don't want to mess with the templates. We want to leave the templates alone. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to duplicate these three. It's going to give me 3 new ones, and then we're going to rename them, and we're going to say theater underscore, which one is this? Block out, block out, block out. And then theater underscore lighting. Cancel. Close. Template level lighting. Rename. Theater underscore lighting. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then cancel. Rename. Oh, I guess I should. Alright, so then we'll grab these 3 and we want to move them to the theater level folder. Keeping things clean. And then we want to make a folder here and say sublevels. And put those 3 in there. Alright, so now our levels exist and they're in the sublevels folder, but you'll notice these are still the templates. So then what we're going to do is we're going to select these 3 and we're going to remove them. It'll say it can't be undone. We understand, proceed. And so then now we're going to add existing levels. So then we go in here, we go to theater, we go to sublevels, and then we say open. Ta-da! They're all back, but now these are the sublevels we can change. Note, when we added these in, you see this little green dot that appeared next to all of them? What that is telling you is that they are currently not going to load unless they are specifically told to via blueprint. That's not how we want it to work. These levels are always supposed to be loaded, so we're going to switch them to always loaded. And you'll notice that that little green dot goes away. Don't worry, you will at some point forget to do this. It's okay. It happens all the time. Alright, so this is that's it. And we've set up a new level. That is how quickly it takes to set up a new level. And so now everything is its own new copy. We can play and change all of this, and it won't matter. And that way we can move forward working. And we know we've started off with, like, part of the reason we do templates is to make sure we're starting off with all of the right stuff, right? So we have, our tools, we have the correct player start, we have nav mesh bounds volumes, like all this kind of stuff to help us do what we need to do as far as, getting a level built out correctly. Okay, so to continue with our tour of Unreal, I do also want to point out, so you'll notice there's an output log window. I tend not to have my output log window open because normally I would have it anchored all the way on that screen. I work on two screens. I have a wide screen here, and then I have a smaller screen here. And at work, my output log is on the far right. So what this is this is pretty much just like your error log or, whatever. It's telling you what's happening, right? So here's where it's showing me the errors that it's having problems with the starter content pack stuff. And, we just haven't fixed that yet. It'll spit out warnings if you have warnings. The reason why I'm showing you where the output log is, though, is because eventually, as you're working in blueprints, so if we just open up a blueprint here, it doesn't matter which one, eventually you'll have like a moment where there's a bug that's happening or something, and you need a print. You need to figure out what's going wrong, and one of the ways to do that is to print something either to the screen or to the log. And so if we do the print, so if you were doing a print text, and you can say print to log, right? So that's why you need to know where your output log is. It will also show you if there's any errors. Oh, weird. Why isn't that deleting? Well, let's just not save you. Okay, so yeah. So output log. Yeah, and I don't worry about any of the rest of that. Let's see. So build. Your building thing. You do stuff in the editor. But there's things like collision, and there's things like nav mesh, and there's things like lighting, and all this kind of thing. And at some point, the game, if you want to play it, it actually has to go through and run all of the code to make all of that work within the game, right? So that's part of the engine, right? That's part of why we're using Unreal. And build is what lets you do that. So if you're ever going in to test something and you fall through a floor or a static mesh that should be solid, it's probably because you forgot to build. Map check is really good for finding errors. But whatever. But build all levels is usually what you're going to do. I would say make sure you adjust your lighting info, because lighting builds will take the longest. And like right now that's on high, and I usually have it on preview until I'm getting close, right? Until I really care about how the lighting looks. And so I tend to put it on preview for a long time. Okay. That's weird. I never use that menu. I don't ever use that menu either. Okay. So this is kind of an okay, so wait, let's back up a second. So save, browse. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that button was also there. So that button is actually in a couple of the menus and is really useful. So let's say here's a door. Cool. I want another one, but I want a slightly different one. I wonder if we already have one. How do I find where that door lives in the game, right? Where is that in our huge file of, stuff that we have, right? Well, if people sorted it properly, it should be under, like, blueprints, and then systems, maybe. Nope, not there. Haunted objects, doors. There we go. So I can find it because I know this system really well. If you don't though, select the door, you hit that, and literally what it's going to do, browses to the associated level and selects it in the most, oh, this is for the levels. Okay, so the door is in theater placed assets. It immediately went to that sublevel and selected it in the content browser. But the cool thing is you'll see that button in a bunch of the menus, right? So if we hit this one, it'll take us to the door, right? So this is the one that's on the haunted door object. So it's just kind of a neat button, a really neat way of going and finding exactly where that item is in the content browser. So selection mode. So as a level designer, I don't actually do a lot of beautifying of the level. That's usually an environmental artist job. But selection mode is just like normal. You pick things and move it around. Landscape is something that level designers will do a lot, and so that's terrain. Anytime you have terrain and you need to sculpt it and make it look cool, that's what landscape is. Foliage is obviously grass and trees and bushes and everything. Modeling and fracture, those are where you can literally use Unreal instead of having to like use 3ds Max or Blender or something like that to model something. And then fracture lets you take a model and break it to pieces, for destructibles. When you blow up a crate, you want all those pieces. Brush editing is if you're using BSP, you can select all the things in BSP and move them around. If you've seen my previous streams, I've done that quite a bit. And then animation. I don't do anything with animation, so I don't know how well that works. Oh, interesting. I've never actually played with that. So I did want to point out this just because it's interesting. So this is kind of blueprints, and you can add blueprints in a bunch of different ways, including right-clicking here and add a blueprint class. But this lets you get to what's called the level blueprint. So level blueprints are actually kind of a thing Unreal has been moving away from, but I wanted to show it to you because it's really useful for prototyping. So what a level blueprint is it's pretty much just a script that runs only in this level. It can see everything that's in the level, and you can do stuff with it, but it only works in this level. So one of the now it's not going to show up. Okay. Yeah, so, that's not what we want. Press. Oh, because that's our interaction. That's our interaction thing. So somewhere up here, there'll be like, you can trigger things on a pressed key, and that way, like, you can test out things really quickly, put in cheat codes, all that kind of thing. I don't really see where it is. Anyway. So keyboard events, there it is. So you go down here, you can pretty much be like, okay, so if they press K, pressed, you drag off of here and you can just build whatever you want. Which is a cool thing for level blueprints. That's not how you should ship a game, right? Like, you shouldn't build a game in level blueprints, right? But it's really useful for quick prototyping. And that's the sequencer. Sequencers are really cool kind of animation things that let you build out like cutscene stuff, but also having lots of other things that are happening. I don't do anything with sequencers because that's kind of a different subteam than what I do. And then this little set of things here is your play. So like you play this level in a new window. This lets you, if you've paused when you're playing the game, advance a single frame. It's really useful for finding bugs and blueprints. That allows you to stop the play in editor because right now it's set up to actually play in the viewport, and so you'll have to alt tab out and hit stop. Yeah. So then the 3 dots next to it actually gives you a bunch of the options, kind of dealing with playing an editor, so you can only play in one of your viewports. I only have a single viewport right now. I'll show you how to change that in a second. That plays in a new window, and you'll see PIE. That just means play in editor. And then there's, you can play it as a standalone game. Spawn player at current camera location or default player start. You can change the number of players. If you're doing a multiplayer game, you'll talk a lot about servers versus clients. So a server is like the game server, and it speaks to all the clients. Important stuff that you don't want the players to be able to cheat goes on the server. Everything that doesn't matter can go on the clients. Quick rule of thumb. But yeah, so that's kind of like all of that information. And there's stuff for platform cooking. I don't really worry about any of that. That's other people's job. Okay, so then on this is the viewport. This is where this whole kind of green area is what we're actually building in the game. So you move through the viewport using WASD and holding down the right mouse button. So the right mouse button, you hold it down and it lets you move the camera. And then you can use WASD to move around once you're in the camera, right? As long as you're holding down that right mouse button. And it just lets you move around like normal. I think there's a way to change that. I don't know where it is. You can probably find it on Google. Okay, so we talked about viewports. So there's this one here, which is usually on perspective, and then underneath it has all the different viewports you can use. You'll notice if you see me work at all, you'll notice I like to use the top and then like left or right to get things lined up properly. But you can also do it this way. So I'm going to go all the way to the right, and there's that little like 4 grid button. And you notice I hit it, and it switches to a single square, and now I have 4 viewports. So this is actually, some people actually work this way. I used to. I don't anymore, but I used to. And so it's kind of a way of having all of your viewports up at once. And that can be useful depending on how you're working. But I prefer to have a single nice big viewport with what I'm doing. All right, so you've got your lighting buttons. That's what this is. So you can like switch between lit or unlit or wireframe, all that kind of stuff. I usually use lit or unlit. Every so often I will hit the button to check player collision. So that's what you're seeing now. Is everything kind of marked as player collision or not? Visibility collision will show you everything that's marked as visible. Oh, neat. There's a little hole over there. Which can be useful for finding like bugs and stuff. Yeah. Let's go back to unlit. So then there's the show menu. So this one is actually part of the thing that inspired me wanting to talk about all this today. Is I had a friend who's a very very talented game designer and very skilled, lots of experience, but they're pretty new to Unreal. And they were like, oh, I'm so frustrated because my level has so many trees in it and I can't select it because all this foliage is in the way. And so that's actually what the show menu does, is it lets you turn things on and off as you need, right? So if the foliage is getting in your way, you can come in here, and I think you can also search for it. Yeah, so foliage types, and you can turn them off, right? You can turn it off entirely there. Whatever you want to turn on and off. I tend to find the things I end up coming to this menu for is collision. If I need to see the collisions, you'll notice as I turn that on, my door gets all the like little extra wireframe lines showing me where the collision is. I will often turn off fog whenever I'm using the lit stuff. And then navigation. So navigation you can also is shortcut on P. So if you just tap the P key on your keyboard, it'll show up. You see this dark green space. All right, everywhere that's dark green has navigation information. That means if we generate an enemy or an NPC or something and we tell them to go somewhere, they can see this, which is called the nav mesh. And they can see the nav mesh, they can go where they need to go, they can do what they need to do, and it's all great. If there isn't, so out here, you'll notice there's no dark green. There's no nav mesh. Enemies will not work out here, and in fact will probably fall through the floor. So yeah, so that's P is one. If your enemies or NPCs are ever doing something bizarre and you have no idea why they're doing that, check navigation first. Almost always starts with navigation. There'll also be things you'll notice sometimes if you put something in, like a door, a doorway, so it's like an open door. The navigation, you'll notice it has to come in and be really narrow. Sometimes that gets too narrow for NPCs to find their way or for enemies to find their way. So you'll hear a lot about the door problem, and Liz England wrote an amazing blog post kind of explaining it. And that's navigation is one of the reasons why doors are so frustrating in games. So the show menu, though, has a lot of stuff in it. It's got so much more stuff than I've ever had to use. I tend to hit the stuff right up here mostly. But yeah, that's a good menu to know where it is. So over here you have most of your use buttons. So I've talked a lot about the WER. I've been learning the hotkeys for Unreal. So W is what's your select tool. E is your thing that lets you rotate stuff. So if you select a thing and you hit E, it brings up the rotate widget so we can turn our door as we need to, And then R is your scale, so you can make things bigger. Scale is kind of tricky. You want to be careful scaling things. You'll discover as you start building things and as you start scaling things, you'll discover why it's a bad idea to scale stuff sometimes. Especially if there's multiple pieces and you try and scale them, they may not all scale together. It's occasionally a trap. I don't actually know what this button does. I don't know why it matters. It says it's cycles the transform gizmo coordinate systems between world and local. I don't know why you would ever want to do that. I think I just use it all as the way it defaults. Oh, surface snapping. Oh, is that? Surely that's not what I think it is, right? Oh, okay. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Rotate to surface normal. Whatever. So I thought for a second it was going to be that it tends that items won't float. So if you put a static mesh out, it won't float. It'll snap it down to the surface. That's not what it does. I don't know what it does then. But if you ever care about items floating, so like you don't want your plant floating above your floor, 1.5 feet, the end key on your keyboard, it'll be over there next to like your delete. It's like home and end and page up and page down. If you hit end, it will snap whatever you have selected to the next piece of collision below it. It's an important distinction because we will use our rug over here for an example. If you have it clipped in like this and you hit end, it won't bring it up and put it on the rug, because the rug is technically above it. And it's whatever point on the item creates the gizmo, right? So the gizmo is always at the center point of the item, which usually you want at the bottom in the center, unless it's something like a door or a wall and then you want it on an edge. But yeah, so you'll notice the center point is in the bottom center of this plant. So when we hit end, it will now snap to the carpet because it's above the carpet. So it finds the next piece of collision right below it and snaps to it. If we move it ever so slightly into the thing and hit end, it won't move at all because it knows it's in collision. And it doesn't like that. So bring it up and hit end. Okay. And then next to that, we have our grid snapping, which you can set your grid size. This means that whenever you're moving things around, especially if you're looking at it in wireframe, it will try and snap to the grid that it can see. Although it's at 1 right now, so it's not super precise. Yeah. Okay, so then next to that is the rotation grid. You should probably try and and use that. Keep that on. Your environmental artist will thank you later. And then your scale snapping. I snap mine to 1/4 there. This is your camera speed. So whenever this button specifically is talking about your camera speed in the viewport. So if you think about moving away, right, that's the 1 speed. And then if we bump it up, oh god, it goes straight from 1 to 3. See how much faster it moves? Way faster. I don't really worry about my camera speed very much. Okay, so we have the outliner, we have our levels. World settings, you probably won't use this very much. Every so often, there will be something I need to come in and mess with in world settings. Where your kill Z plane is, stuff like that. But not too often. It's not often. Usually it's on details pane. So the way it looks right now is usually how I see the editor when I'm working in it. Although with the 5, because I usually put it on 5. All right. Let's drop that to the ground. Let's see what all of this stuff is. We have moonlight. Yeah, we have a lot of lighting stuff. Lighting is kind of a slightly more. Oh. New Age Zero says world transform and relative transform is useful for moving angled walls. Oh, it is useful for moving. That's super cool. That is super cool. They're talking about moving angled walls. So if you think about if we a wall like that and we want to move it around or do something with it, switching it to local versus world means you can then move it around easier instead of ending up with it like a super jank numbers. All the numbers get real janky. And when I say numbers, I'm talking about if you look in the details pane there, your location, your rotation, your scale, those numbers will get janky really fast, and that button probably lets you get around it. Unreal's UI looks pretty clean. I mean, it's okay. The interesting thing about Unreal as a program you use is that Unreal has been kind of the primary. For a very long time, video game companies just kind of use Unreal because it's the easiest thing to use, right? If you go back far enough, every video game company pretty much either used Unreal or they wrote their own. And one of the problems with that is that if you're a company and you want to make a game quickly, you don't want to write your own because it takes a lot of time and effort, a lot of engineers, and it takes a lot of UI work because UI is really challenging, especially in a really complicated tool like this. And so I've worked in a lot of proprietary editors, and a lot of them did not have someone who cared about UI working on them, and you could tell. It wasn't fun. It wasn't easy to use or any of that kind of stuff. So, um, Unreal has also been used for like 30 years. It is a real solid. Actually, I say that. I entered the industry 18 years ago, and I was using Unreal 2.5. They were literally coming out with Unreal 3 as I was entering the industry, right? So I used Unreal 2.5 at school, and then I entered the industry, and when I got to a company that used Unreal, it was already in 3. And then, you think about that. That was version 3, right? So there was version 2.5, and then version 2, and then version 1. Like Unreal had been used for like 15 years at the point where I started using it. It's had a lot of iterations. It's had a lot of time to clean its UI. It's had a lot of time to find stuff like, this super cool little button that gets you to where you need to be in your content browser. And it's a lot of work has gone into making this editor the most usable editor, which is kind of why a lot of people just default to Unreal, right? They'll be like, there's no reason to make our own. We should just default to Unreal. Now, much like a lot of other programs, Unreal is big and it's got a lot of stuff, right? Like when I was up here and I was talking about like you have modeling and you have animation inside Unreal. When they first started working on Unreal, that stuff wasn't there. Like it was all done, external programs and stuff like that. But as time has gone on, they've added more and more of that into Unreal. So now, if you think about it, like Unreal is the everything in the kitchen sink, right? It's got all this stuff in it. And you may not need a lot of it, right? Like, our project, we don't have enemies. There's no combat. So there's a whole part of Unreal that's all like behavior trees and stuff like this that we won't end up using. But Unreal for us is super easy because we use it at work, right? So we're really familiar with it. We really know it. And we don't have any engineers. So, well, my husband's an engineer, but he's a gameplay engineer, not a, engine engineer. It's two very different kinds of engineer. So having that base, right, just makes it really easy to jump right in and start building stuff. There is probably people who could explain the value, how much of that stuff gets packaged. Actually, it doesn't. Unreal is astonishingly good at only packaging up the stuff you're using. Let me find my content browser again. Where'd it go? I think I may have closed it. Content browser one. There it is. If you look in the content browser, actually, so I'll minimize this. So you'll see, like, we have a ton of asset packs, right? When we do our builds, anything that isn't being referenced by the actual game and by the actual levels, if they're like, oh, this isn't actually connected anywhere, don't use it. It's actually really good at that. But there is also ways, like, you can go in and you can actually tell it not to include certain files in the build and in the package. It was actually really neat when we set that up, so we could get Ghost Hunter Simulator working on Steam Deck. It was really cool. Because, and again, like, that's part of the reason people use Unreal is because people have been using Unreal for 30 years to make games. So it tends to do a lot of stuff the correct way, just kind of default, because that's the way game developers want it done, and they complain to Unreal enough to get it fixed. But also, Fortnite is insane. Like, Fortnite has to build new content so quickly, so often. They have to do all this stuff, and the editor is part of what allows that speed and freedom of implementation to happen, right? And it's because this editor is so robust and is so, tested, right? People have been using this for 30 years to make games. It's really funny because people will talk about, like, oh, should you use Unity or Godot or whatever, and I'm like, well, the best editor is the one you know how to use. The second best editor is Unreal. And that's just because so many other people also use Unreal. If you're looking to get a job in games, you should learn Unreal. And I say that, it's the worst market in the games industry ever. And I have had multiple people reach out to me and be like, hey, can you help me learn how to use Unreal? Because all the jobs are for people who know Unreal. So it's like, oh, okay, I'll try. I'll point you at the demos and the tips and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, okay. So we made our level. We made our sub levels. We shortcut the process a little by copying stuff that was already there. Oh, I meant to say earlier when I was talking about that. There's this kind of concept of reuse, and there are some people who view that very negatively, and that's ridiculous. When you sit down to write an email, you don't create all new words, right? You don't make up new words for your whole email. So it seems kind of silly that people would expect when you're making a game to just build everything from scratch, right? In the standard process working on World of Warcraft for making a new quest, step 1 is select a quest that's already been made, right click, copy, right? Like, so you start from a place of find something that already works, copy it, make the adjustments to what you need it to do now. And that's pretty standard for video games, because by copying the template, I know this level already works. I know if I right click and I say play from here, it's going to be able... we want to skip because we don't want to save that. I know it's going to work. I know it's going to pop me into a level, it's going to do the thing, and I'm going to be able to walk around and look at what's going on. Yeah. Okay. So, I'm actually going to show you something really quick. So this is the message log after I just ran the level. You'll notice there are a ton of errors there. Most of these are gameplay engineer errors. I actually don't think there's any level errors in here. But like, theoretically, you want to not have errors show up whenever you build and run your level. Ours is fine though. It's indie. Okay, so we talked about moving. We talked about I wonder. No. Okay. All right. So theater. Okay, let's build a theater. So when I'm talking about theater, I am talking about a stage production theater, not like a movie theater. Ghost Hunter Simulator, one of our objectives that we really want to do is have a lot of these kind of real world locations that let people explore places that actually exist, right? And have that kind of creepy experience, but also that like kind of like nosy explorer experience as well. When we start building a level, the first thing you do, you want to get that really rough shape. You want to start getting your scale, your shape, and the feeling of how you're going to move through a level. So fortunately, we have a door. Doors are great for scale, especially if, and I'm going to pop back into the play really quick just to show, especially if your player character fits in the door, right? Our character, it's all first person, so first person kind of has like a weird difference of scale than third person. But you want to make sure your player character can fit through your doors. You want to make sure that if they open, the player character can walk through them. But yeah, so once you have the scale of a door, though, you now know about player size or about the space a player is going to take up. And so you can start building out from there. Scale's one of those ones that's really challenging to get working properly. In video games, a lot of times if you're ever playing a game and you're like, wow, this feels really jank or something, this feels off, it's taking too long to get places or whatever, it's probably something's wrong with the scale. It's also the thing that people's lizard brain most often identifies as being wrong. Okay, so I'm gonna go in, since we have a ton of content packs, and I'm just gonna look for chair. These are filters you can add to your filters using this little drop down here, and you can add extra filters, but I already have a bunch, so I'm just gonna hit static mesh because I'm looking for static mesh of a chair. Theaters, you have your biggest things are seats, and then stage, and then doorways, the stage manager's box, that kind of thing. So I'm looking really quick to see if I have any already ready theater chairs, and I do not. I didn't see any. So when we talk about theater chairs, we're actually thinking about those kind of ones that you would have to fold the seat down and sit down in. They're all kind of connected, which is a bit of a different tone than having a bunch of like folding chairs or something set out there. This one's kind of close, not great, but it's more correct because it's got the idea of the connected chairs. Probably don't want to do that. Let me see. No theater. Curtain. I may have chosen a poor subject if we don't have any of the stuff to go on it. Yeah. Stage? Ooh. Well, we have stage lights. Yep, those aren't going to do it. Alright, well, I may not have the assets to do this build. So, I'm just checking really quick. Mid-century is often... I'm trying to think of the right phrase to say. Like, mid-century often kind of nails the feeling of places like theaters or churches, that kind of thing. Alright. I think I may end up using these, though. I like this one a little better. Alright. Okay, so we have... Let me grab a stool. Alright, let's go back to stage. Burp. Grab us a stage light. Okay, so then window. Oh, I was also going to say, just for if you're starting in Unreal, you don't have any asset packs. Unreal actually comes with a kind of a demo game. It's called Lyra, and it kind of has some base functionality in it that can be very useful if you don't know where to start at all, right, Lyra is actually a pretty good place to start, and you can take Lyra and you can start, making your own changes and your adjustments to it. So it's actually pretty cool. Lyra's kind of a nice thing that they gave us. Okay, well, I think I am just going to, and we'll go on here. I'll look for a carpet really quick. I don't think that's going to work out really well. Yeah, that'll be fine. Okay. So, Alt, holding down Alt key, and then drag will duplicate whatever static mesh you're currently holding on to. It'll also do it for lights and a bunch of other things. Alt is probably my most used key in Unreal. Okay, so I am going to go switch this one back to basic. Basic floor. Alright, because we got to have the lobby, right? So we do the lobby, and then there'll be a doorway that goes from the lobby into the theater, and usually move that out to the lobby. Sorry, Ghost, I don't need you for the moment. You can go away. I'm going to select all the tools. Nope. Shift. I'm going to move all of them out to the lobby. And I'm going to move this light out to the lobby because it's not the right light for the theater. For our wall, let's see. Let's go ahead and copy one. So you heard me earlier say I spend a lot of time in the up view, the top view. And that's just to, like, if you look here, yeah, we're actually the walls are kind of clipping into the floor a little bit, which you don't really want. It'll cause trouble later. We talk a lot about building clean. It's a good idea to build clean. I see what's going on here. These were placed when the scale was set to 1, and it is now set to 5, so they're not wanting to move properly. But they are off by 1, so we're going to move them. Let's see if we zoom away, and you can see they're off by 1. So scooch them over. Boom. Build clean. Always build clean. It's always worth it to build clean. Alright. Select this one. Alright, now, though, I'm going to go on here and I'm going to check. Okay, so are these clipping into the ground? No. Ooh, our terrain is just not. Oh, the landscape is not at 0. I see. Haha. Okay. Minus 20. Weird. Okay. I don't really care that much about landscape in this level though, because it's not going to matter. We're not going to have an exterior for this level at all. Move that up to 0. Move this one up to 0. Round them to the 5s because we're going back to a 5 scale. I want to be on 5s. I don't want to be on whatever the heck that was. Okay. Go back to 5s. 0. Although I think I want to put this at 0. And you're not at a 5. Let's put you at a 5. Okay, so now that everything is on a proper number, I'm going to go into my top view and make sure everything is lined up properly. Ta-da! Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, so we have started our exterior. We've started our interior. I really want to slide you down. All right, and then so see, by also putting it on 5s, I'm also fairly confident that they will line up and stack correctly. Things in Unreal tend to be on 5s or 10s in the marketplace if they're done correctly. So Dakugan's stuff is all on 5s and 10s, which, well, most of their stuff is on 5s and 10s, which helps a lot. Okay. Boop. I will note if you use end, when we were talking earlier about, oh, you use the end, stuff will end up with weird. Notice how it's like 25.03 blah 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 blah. They'll end up with weird stuff like that, so sometimes you want to go in and adjust them back if it matters. It may not matter. Okay, and let me go grab the other tools because they're now all buried in the floor. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. So we started our theater. Oh, directional moonfill. Whoop. Don't care about you. Don't care about you. Definitely don't care about you. And then we're going to put you in the lobby. Sweet. I'm using this stool as my placeholder for the box office. It's kind of in my head. That's what I'm thinking about. Okay, so so specifically the theater I'm thinking of is a classic high school stage, right? So you kind of come in, there's 2 sides of seats. It's a slow slope downwards, and then there's a stage that's kind of raised, and then you've got steps coming up on either side of the stage onto the stage. So there's a couple of different ways you can kind of go about this. You could try and recreate the slope, which, depending on the fidelity of your game, may be the correct choice, right? So that's one of those things you kind of have to think about level design in terms of what your game actually is. So our game is Ghost Hunter Simulator. We are a simulation game, but fortunately for us, simulation as a genre has kind of embraced this, accurate enough, right? Like close enough fidelity for their games. So I will tend to think of simulation as like, okay, it could be the slope, but that's the kind of like really amazing version. We took a lot of time and spent a lot of effort. Remember, we're doing this for quick. We want to get it done really quick, and we want to test it and see how it feels. That means making sure it's good before putting a lot of time and effort into building that slope. So the way we're going to get around that is by getting close enough. So I'm going to start with using the chairs here for scale. So if you know the assets you're using are correct to scale to your player character, you can then use assets for scale. Otherwise, you'll want to use a player character. I don't even know where to find the character model for the player character in Unreal. Because usually, oh, I guess, let's do it. Okay, well, that might do it. So it gives you that little thing. It kind of gives you a thing. Let's see. Bare arms. Oh, there it is. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let me just... So if I go in here... Oops, sorry. If I go in here and I hit this, it will take my... browser, my content browser, to where that is. So I hit the button, it brought this up, and I can just drag a character out. Cool. So then I can delete this one because it was doing weird things. But this isn't quite T-posed. I think this is just kind of a standard pose. If you ever find an NPC character, though, and you find them out in T-pose, out in a game somewhere, someone was probably using it for scale. So you'll notice if we bring our female character over here, and it's worth noting it is female, so they tend to be a little shorter than gents. So we bring her over here. I mean, she's a little short to the door because it's a first-person game. Our everything ends up being a little bit bigger than it actually should be, right? So if it was a third-person game, we would have to bring our scale in. But because it's first-person, everything's a little bigger. But okay, so she can definitely fit through that door. Like her arms are kind of like showing like the like this is really her personal space. And we can do this also by like if we turn her this way, whoops, 90. And slide her over here, like we can tell like okay, this character could reasonably sit in this chair. You know, she's probably a little tall for the chair. That's fine. It is a leaned back chair quite a bit, you know, because you can see her knees would probably be like sticking up a little bit, and so the chair should probably be a little bigger, to match the scale of the door. But I'm not gonna mess with it yet. We're not there yet. We're not to that point of precision yet. And that's a really valuable skill to know in game development of when it's time to start making things like really precise and when it's time to get into the nitty-gritty and polish things up. But it's close enough. So if you think about it in terms of like, okay, so we have two characters, you know, fingers to fingers. That's kind of what we're looking at for a walkway. So if you think about level design is inherently how people are moving through spaces. Most walkways are 2 people wide. If a hallway or, you know, a walkway or something is 1 person wide, it feels so narrow. People will recognize that it's so narrow and they won't want to go in there. It feels too claustrophobic. Even if there aren't walls, they won't want to go in there because it just feels too small. So we want to give that if you think about a movie theater or a theater, there's always that kind of like space behind all, like you kind of walk a little bit before you reach the first couple of seats. And then, you know, you have aisles. So we're thinking about this in terms of aisles. All right, so that's that. We're going to pull this over, flip it back around. All right, and then I'm going to bring it back. Let's just go back to about here. I like to give a lot of extra space because I am used to working with environmental artists and they will come in and fill the space. I like to leave myself about a 20%, 25% buffer between what I need to be gameplay space and non-gameplay space, because art will tend to just kind of invade the gameplay space. So if I give myself that 20-25% buffer, once art has gone in and done their job, it all feels correct because I left that buffer, right? And if it turns out like a space is a little too big because of that buffer, we can scooch the art into the gameplay space a little bit, make it a little bigger, whatever. We can make minor adjustments to make it feel bigger. It is easier to make something smaller and to cut things than it is to add. So by leaving that buffer, I make sure that I have an easier time later. I'm doing work for future me. Okay, so so I'm kind of feeling, I really feel this distance. So then what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to change the scale of this thing to kind of match the walkway. So by doing it that way, I can then come in and go boop. And then, all right, well, we know it's going to have to slope down, so we can just make it, I think this is going to be too deep. And you just kind of have those stair step down, right? But I think this is too deep. And what I'm talking about when I say too deep is, so we go in, we're going to go off. Okay, no problem. Oh no, it isn't too deep. Look at that. You want them to be able to step up onto it without jittering the camera, right? Which is what we're talking about. So if you watch the stool, you kind of feel the jitter a little bit, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It feels like a proper step. It also doesn't look too high. So one of the things you have to kind of contend with is players, if they see something and they think it needs to jump or something, they'll try and jump. And it doesn't look too high. It doesn't look like it needs a jump. And you don't really want the player to be jumping when it isn't right for them to jump. So yeah, so that's we're kind of getting there in our starting thing. So then what I want to do, I want to grab my ladies here. We're going to slide you guys over here. Do this. Okay. Let me switch my perspective left. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure my things I'm using for scale are at least somewhat centered on that doorway, because this is now going to be my left aisle, I guess, in the theater. And then boop. So one of the things, level design is really, I talked earlier, it's about how people move through spaces, right? It's all about flow. It's all about that feeling of a space being logical and functional. One of the things is making sure that if it's a space, a place that has lots of extra space, that's logical, right? Parking lots, great, right? Lots of extra space. It's totally fantastic to have big open areas in parking lots. Parks, great, lots of open space. A lot of people will make a mistake though, and they'll have like a shop or a cafe or something like that, and they'll leave lots of big open space. These places don't have open space. Every business that you build, you have to consider what the placement of things affects both their rent and the number of people they can serve. So anytime I'm playing a game, and it's supposed to, like, this especially happens in GTA. Anytime you're playing a game and you see like a Starbucks, right? And you're like, oh, cool. And you go into the Starbucks and there's enough space in the Starbucks for you to have like a big combat inside this building, because there's only 2 tables and they're shoved into the corner. And it's like, okay, but have you ever been in a real Starbucks? Right? Like, that's not how they look, right? They pack as many possible tables as they can put in there without it being a fire hazard, right? Because they want more places for people to be able to sit. This is also why restaurants don't like it whenever you sit in the table for hours and hours, because, like, you should go so they can put another person there. They can make more money, and have that turnover. It's always super funny whenever people build shops and they'll be like 2 shelves and that's it in a shop. And I'm just like, no, if the shop is that big, you're going to fill every available space you can without making it too claustrophobic. Now you say, well, okay, but we needed to have a combat in that Starbucks. Okay, though that's when you need destructible items. You let the player walk in, somebody comes rushing in, all the tables get shattered and destroyed, and now they're out of the way. We've now overcome that suspension of disbelief that we were breaking, and players can be like, okay, it's more acceptable to suspend disbelief with enemies coming in and every table exploding, every table and chair exploding, than it is to come in and be like, why was this building empty? It would have never looked like this originally. So when I'm thinking about a theater, you think about they need to sell tickets. They need to have lots and lots of places for people to sit and do the thing. So theaters, their walkways, like their alleys, kind of going from the door down to the stage and across, will be as narrow as they can possibly make them without making them uncomfortable, right? So this is where we're at. I do a lot of alt dragging here to really get the feel. Okay, so whoever made this asset is kind of getting us a little bit, because you'll notice there's a gap. They have kind of a built-in gap in the thing, and we have to kind of respect that so that the player isn't noticing that these are just double seats that we're copying. But fortunately, they did them on a 5. I love Dakugon. If you're a Dakugon developer, I thank you. Okay, so we got a bunch of seats here. Actually, I'm realizing, so we have to expand one way or the other, and I don't really care which way we expand. So I actually think I'm going to expand out that way. I'm pretty sure there were 6 seats on this side. So we're going to move this out. I should probably not have this be a 20. If it gets over 10, it starts to look a little weird. Everything starts to look a little weird when it's scaled up too far. Superb. And then let's copy that again. All right. Okay, but I do want to have at least a double wide to this wall edge. Cool. So then I'm going to select all of my floors. And then boom. What if I want it right there? That lines up to our grid. Okay, and then these 2 need to slide there. Nice, nice. You know what, let me go here. I'm gonna make my walls match my floor sizes here because I found a Neuberger. It helped a lot if everything was kind of perfect, lined up. Alright, and then I'm going to take this, let's cut it down to 10, since we are pretty sure we don't want it to be stretched and gross looking. Alright. Okay. Like that. Okay, so this, though, let's go. Alright, so our walls, so 2 of our walls here don't match up to our floors. So let's check. What size are you? You're 3.5, 3.5, 4.5. Okay, let's go 3.5 and 3.5. Okay. That's because our lobby is much wider. Okay, so if we make our lobby, though, if we come in here, we select our 3 lobby pieces, and we make them 7. Now it'll all work. Boop. Ta-da! Okay. This is going to be a pretty small lobby, but that's okay. The place that we're basing it off of was also a very small lobby. Alright, so funny thing about theaters is they have a lot of fire codes. People died in theaters. They caught fire, big curtains, gas lights, candles, stuff like that. A lot of people died during Phantom of the Opera. But that kind of fire codes matters as a level designer. So you have to think about these kind of things and think about how they change the level that you're working on. Alright, so we've got 6 in the center, or 6 on the side. We're going to have 6 on the other side because there's 3 sections of seats, which means we should probably have 12 in the center. So we've got 8 right now. People tend to like things being even. I like things being even. I think that's one of the reasons I like being a level designer. Do that. And then let's go ahead and... Nope, not you. You. Boop. Alright, so we check again though to make sure we're not... So see, notice how we're a little too far away on this one, so we're going to scooch it back a little bit. I want it to kind of be hand to hand with a little extra on the outside. Okay, and then we're going to deselect these, duplicate these ladies over here, and then bring you back in a little bit. Oh, let's bring you both back in a little bit. Was it left? It was left. Oh, because that door was slightly off. There we go. Alright. Cool. And then we will need to duplicate out another set of floor. Okay, so you'll notice our floor is too long. Too long. So then you can either just scale the end piece and make it fit, which is a lot of what I did on Newburger. Or you can actually come in and adjust all of them to kind of fit a little better across the space. Because this is a theater and because I do like, I'm going to go ahead and adjust them. So, we're about, what is that? 10? And we've got 4 pieces across, so each of them needs to be 2 shorter. So if we go to perspective, boop, 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 boop. And we're going to make them 8s. Alright, so then we scroll like that. And then we deselect, oh gosh, deselect this one and this one. This may not be the fastest way to do this, but it's the way I usually do it. Okay, and then if we copy these out, okay, so let's go back. Doop, 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 doop. Alright, so 8 didn't get us there. Maybe it's 9. Undo is amazing. Actually, I control Z a lot when it comes to Unreal. I think if I ever became like a super big streamer or something, I would probably have some kind of inside event based on anytime I was like, ooh, and had to undo something. Gosh, look at that. I switched them to 9s and they still don't quite fit. What is that about? We know it didn't fit at 10s, right? We were there? Okay. Alright, well. That means it's probably like 8.5 or something. 9.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wall to wall, right? Okay. How far back does my thing go? There we go. I think I'm actually going to leave them at 10s. And then I'm going to select go ahead and copy my wall over too. Since it's gonna matter, it's gonna make this feel different on this side. Alright. Yeah, so see we've got 3 full chunks on this side before we get to the seats. So let's go like so. And slide all of you there. Okay. So then we'll select all of this. And then we're just gonna center this. Does that look even? That looks even. Symmetry is amazing. Human beings like symmetry, and so symmetry in level design tends to make people feel very comfortable. If you want to make people feel uncomfortable, make things asymmetrical, and they will pick up on it, like their lizard brain picks up on it. Okay, so then we have lots of seats. Let's go ahead and copy out another one of these. And these. Okay, so depending on the movie, on the theater or movie theater, they'll have a different number of seats per kind of like chunk going down, and a different amount of space between each row of seats. Oh, these are clipping into the. All of our seats are off a little bit. Okay, let's just go here. Boop. We want to go to top because we want them not on the thing. You want a little bit of space behind the seat. That's the curb. So then what we could do, we could actually go ahead and have this be a stair step down, right? So you have each step is 1 row of seats. And I think that's what I'm gonna do. It's just cleaner, it's just nicer. And we can go in here and we can put it at 2.5. 2. Okay. So you still want to leave some space because we are building realistically, but hashtag but my cat is howling at me. Oh no. Oh gosh, come on. Change to perspective top. I should learn the hotkeys for those next. Okay, so if we alt, drag, let's go to left. Nope. Right. No, not left or right. Front. There. Okay, and then we go down. Okay. Now. Cool. We're already in the ground. Actually, let me just go away. Alright. Now, there's probably some of you who have been in a theater before and are sitting here going, there's way too much space between those rows, and you said to pack things in. Yes, I did. But you still have to get, oh, come on, let me around. You still have to build it in such a way that the player can get through. Now you'll notice I am super jammed in between these seats right now, actually. I just realized the terrain was still on. Let me go find to dismiss. Okay, it doesn't have the one in it. Hidden in game? Maybe? Yep, there we go. Goodbye, terrain. Don't fall off. You will fall forever. Okay. But it gives us that nice ability to walk between the rows, which is something we're going to want. It also doesn't look too bad. If you're putting tables in like a cafe, players should be able to walk between ones that are reasonable. But you can also do the thing where like you have chairs pulled out so that they're kind of like blocking the space to really just tell the player they shouldn't expect to be able to go here. Okay, so then what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to select these. So Unreal does a lot of cool stuff like allowing you to group things. And groups are real neat because it kind of just locks everything together and lets you move it all as a single item as opposed to a bunch of different items. Boop, boop. Alright, so this is a row of floor and all the seats that will be in it. And we're going to right click and we're going to say group. And then it creates a big group that is all of those items now together. And then we can go right. Not right. Front. So you can kind of see it's got a bigger kind of green box around it showing that it's. And if I accidentally click off of it, it doesn't matter because it's all kind of connected together. Okay, so I was going to say there is a kind of a point most movie theaters, most theaters, where you've got chairs, and then you have a big wide thing in case like somebody's come down the wrong side aisle. They don't have to go all the way back up to come back down, and so you have a big walkway again in the center. When we're ready for that, we're going to grab this back one. Remember, it's bigger, right? We made it a little wider than our normal stuff. And then we're going to go back to front. And we're going to copy it out and down. Cool. Then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to grab this one, and grab this one, and grab this one. So now I've grabbed 3 groups. And then we go click and drag. Oh, we're not lined up. There we go. And then that is how we did it on the earlier one. What is that? Gosh. Alright. Cool. Hey, look at that! Now we have a theater. Ta-da! So then it's filling in walls and then our stage. So I'm gonna grab this same extra wide piece that we had before. Have it be our stage. Alright. And then I'm going to make it double wide. And then I'm gonna snag one of my walls. I know I will need to fill in all of the rest of my walls, but we're just gonna do this one for a second. I wonder why it only went to there. That's right. Okay. What's our scale already at? Scale is 4. Let's make it 2. And then we want to make this look like wood. We want a nice dull wood, nice dark wood. All the nanite materials. Nanite's really cool as a concept. It works really, does really interesting things. Building, bench, wood deck, a wood walnut. Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay. That might be a bit high, actually. That feels a bit short. Okay. Actually, I should be doing this. Let's save all. Save often. Let's go to my content browser. Whoops. Not who I wanted. Content browser. So we're gonna need a stair. And stairs are a pain in the butt. So let's see what we have. Those are really tall stairs. Oh, your art is broken? Why? Oh, you're probably from... Yeah. Let me see, can I just... What is that, walnut? That doesn't look terrible at all. Save it. Why? Why, that even looks halfway decent. Alright, cool. So, the reason why I want to do that is because, you you always have those kind of side stairs that go up onto the stage. And if we have those, we can make sure our stage is the right height. I do think there will probably be 2 of them. Do we want to do 2? Boy, that's a lot of stairs, right? Maybe just 1. And then, yeah, that'll do. All right. So yeah, so then you kind of build out the stage that way. We are right at 2 hours, and I usually try and keep these to 2 hours. So we're gonna skip that. Thanks everybody for joining me today. Thanks Magic Monkey and New Age Zero for chatting. And I hope you all have a great weekend. We'll be back, hopefully to a more regular streaming schedule. November just kind of kicked my butt. And moving forward on Ghost Hunter Simulator, we are planning on shipping this next October, so we are now solidly in the, hey, we only have 11 months, let's go! One of the exciting things about working on games is whenever you get in that stage of like, oh, we just have to ship this, like, just get things done. And that's actually probably one of my favorite parts of the development process. So, yeah. Thanks everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend and a great week. Bye.